everyone, it's Lisa from Dreaming Soap. Welcome to my channel and thanks for dropping by. I thought I would go over a little bit of detail about some just basic extruding techniques, because I don't cover that often on my channel, and obviously I do extrude quite a lot of things, so I thought it'd be a chance to actually go through some bits and pieces. Now I'm going to do some extruding with just a small extruder that I've got here. I've got a small extruder that's made by Fimo. You can get this one, or you can get lots of small extruders from Amazon, and there's other places like Makins, for example, that make extruders. I also sell a larger extruder that I've developed especially for extruding soap dough, which has got a nice wide opening, wider than you can get anywhere else, which will make some nice large embeds. So let's think about our extruding first of all. When you've got an extruder, it's typically going to come apart into a few pieces. You'll have a hollow tube, that's where you actually put your soap dough, and then you'll have a part that typically has sort of like a bolt that goes through it, and you turn that bolt and it squeezes the soap dough through the extruder. So once you've put your soap dough into your extruder, you're going to take your disc, pop that into the little extruder cap, and then screw that onto your extruder. And once you've done that, all you've got to do is just twist the end and squeeze out that soap dough, and it will come out in the shape that you've actually got in that little disc. Now, one of the things to be careful of when you are extruding shapes is, first of all, it's really important to have good quality soap dough. So by that, you should have soap dough that's pretty firm. It shouldn't be all sticky in your hands, and it shouldn't be crumbly. So you need to practice making soap dough. I'll link a video in the description below on how you can make some soap dough. And also as well, try to make sure that when you do extrude, can you see here that the thing that you extrude may try and bend and curl over? And depending on the shape you're extruding, it may try and do that more or less. So the best thing you want to do is try to extrude it straight as it comes out of the extruder tool. And the reason for that is soap is not really that flexible. You know, once you've extruded it, if you'd extruded that and it got all twisted and bent round, to try and straighten it up, you're going to end up sort of breaking the soap dough a little bit. So it's much easier to try and get it extruded nice and straight, like I've done here, as you bring it out. So take a little bit of time and get that extruded out nice and straight. Okay, so those are just some basic bits and pieces for doing our extruding. I'm going to carry on doing a load more extruding, and then we're going to come back when we're going to start putting some of these embeds together and make some more sort of complex embeds that we need several bits of soap dough joined together for. I finished all of my extruding. Now what I've done as well is some larger embeds. These are made in exactly the same way, but I use the large extruder tool that I sell in the Dreaming Soap shop. So it's basically exactly the same concept, just you can make much larger embeds. Now what I'm going to do here is these embeds, some of them need to be joined together, because obviously anytime you have something that's got multicolours in it, you can't extrude those all together because you need to use two different bits of soap dough. So what I'm going to do is join them together. And whenever I design an embed in the shop that needs to be joined together, I will always design it so that it joins together really easily. So for example, here's the roof of my bird table, and I'm just going to wet that down with a little bit of distilled water. Now it's important to use distilled water here because this soap has already been through saponification, so therefore you'll get away potentially with using other types of water in your soap when you make it, because the saponification is quite a harsh environment and will get rid of any issues normally. But remember, our soap dough has already been saponified, so at this point we're using distilled water just to make sure we don't have any nasties trapped between our soap dough.
Okay, so I'm just going to pop those two together. Now when you use water, it acts like a really good glue. Now initially it will make your soap seem more slippery and you think, oh no, it's sliding all over the place. But think about when you put soap on the side of a bath or something and it's wet. It sticks, doesn't it, to the side of the bath. So therefore, by us spraying this with some nice, clean, fresh distilled water, once that dries out, that will give you a nice, firm hold on your little shapes. Okay, so you can see how they've gone together nicely. The other thing I want to stick together is that this is my bird. So now my birds have got two parts. This is the back of the bird, sort of all its feathers and everything, and the bird's head. And then I'm going to take the little bird's chest and pop that on. Okay, so there's one little bird, and I'll do the same for the other one. Okay, and one of the key things that you're looking for here is to make sure that you've pushed it down all the way along, because anytime two bits of soap dough come apart, obviously they could ruin your embed and it won't look like what it's supposed to look like, but also as well it's going to leave some holes in your soap. Okay, so there's that. And then the last thing is I've got some branches. These were made by my large extruder. So I've got some branches, and what I want to do with this is extend the branch like that so it will go all the way across the soap. Okay, so again I'm just going to wet this a bit, and I'm going to sort of smear the two of them together just to make it look like one continuous branch. Now the reason I'm doing this with this, because you may think, well, why didn't I just do that all as one piece? It's just obviously there's a limit between how big you can actually make an embed, and that depends on the size of your extruder. Now the iDream Soap large extruder can produce embeds bigger than normal. Even if you buy a similar sort of large type extruder on the internet, mine is actually specifically designed to create larger embeds than that. But obviously there is a point where the opening in the extruder is only so big. Okay, but that's okay, because now I've just done that and got those two joined together. So there's my little branch. Now that's all my embeds prepared. I'm going to leave these until tomorrow to make the soap. Now I'm not putting my bird table together because what's going to happen is I'm going to try and pop one of my little birds inside my bird table. But it also means that, now I get this happening quite a lot, is that I design or make bespoke extruder discs for people. So people come to me and say, oh, I would like this in an extruder disc, and they'll send me a design. One thing you need to bear in mind if you're asking for designs is, let's for example say you wanted something like this. You can't have holes in your extruders, as it were, in the things you're going to extrude, because that will be a big old hole in your soap. So often I have to go back to people and going, unfortunately that design's not going to work, and then maybe help them redesign it in a way that will actually work in soap. Now what my plan is, when I make my little bird table, I'm going to fill that with some soap, the same colour soap that will be the background, the sky, so it looks like you can see the sky through it. And then I'm going to pop a little bird inside the table. So therefore I'm going to actually finish constructing those tomorrow. Here we are back the next day. So I've had these just sitting overnight, which just lets those sort of bonds with the water just really get everything stuck together. So really all I need to do for this is to now get this into the soap. Now, one thing I need to be careful of, and I'm a little bit concerned because I've only tested this fragrance, but I've never actually used it in a soap, and it does seem to accelerate quite quickly. Now, the fragrance I'm going to use is Hanami from Stock Fragrance, and it's a beautiful cherry blossom fragrance. It's got a fairly low usage rate, category 9, which is what we use for any rinse-off products such as soap, has a usage rate of 3.5%. That's fine for me. In the UK we can only go up to 3% anyway, and this has a pretty strong fragrance, so therefore I see people using it at sort of 2.5%. I'm going to use it at 2.5%. Now, I did test it at 2% and it did accelerate reasonably quickly, but I think I'd like a little bit more strength. So I'm going to go up to 2.5. So obviously that's concerning for me of how fast it's going to accelerate. Now, I'm not doing a swirl with it. I'm just literally using it to fill my soap up. So I'm hoping it's actually going to be a good one to do because it'll help support my embeds, but hopefully I can still get it into the mould well enough. So that's a little bit of a worry for me because, as I say, I do know how it behaves, but I'm just hoping I can get it to interact with this soap. And especially things like, for example, my branches, I want to make sure I get soap all in between there. So I do need to be a little bit careful with how I use it. Right, so my whole base is going to be one solid colour. A blue background, a nice light blue background. So let's get this mixed up. I've got my oils in there and my lye solution and my sodium lactate. Now normally if I'm just doing a solid colour, I would actually add my mica into the colour here. I've pre-dispersed my blue. This is electric blue from Pure Rock Colours. Just a bit quickly pop into my cupboard. Now, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to not use much titanium dioxide in this, just because I don't want to put... I want to put as few things in here that could increase that acceleration a bit. So, rather than just dumping the blue that I would normally when I do a background for sky, I do 50% of the blue and 50% TD. I'm going to try and back off on the blue a bit to see if I can put in less TD and see if that'll still give me a good colour. Okay, I'm just going to leave it at that. Okay, so it may not be fully emulsified, but that's okay because I want to play with the colour. So I've got my mica here. Now, assessment-wise in the UK, I can alter the amount of colour I put in there because I've got a flexible assessment for this fragrance. So that means I've been told the maximum of my colours I can use, but I can use anything up to that amount. So that's okay. Okay, that's not really blue, is it? Right, it's going for a little bit more. Now, I'm not putting anywhere near as much blue. If I was trying to turn this electric blue colour, I would actually put in 0.6% of my oils. That's what I typically use my micas at. For this, I've only got 0.3% in here anyway, so it's only half the blue that I would normally be using. I don't mind that too much. I might add a little bit of TD to that. Oh, let's weigh this. Okay, so I think I'm okay with that colour. It's a little bit close to the green. Hopefully those leaves will show up enough. I don't want to put any more TD in there. So the first thing I want to do is prepare this birdhouse. So I'm just going to pour off a little bit of soap for the bird. And I'm going to use my fragrance oil, which will accelerate a bit. And that will start to get that thickening up, so I can then get this little shape filled and ready. Okay, so you can see it's not making it seize or anything, but it is starting to thicken it up. Now I do need this reasonably thick because I don't want it to all fall out of the ends. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start putting some in the middle. And making sure that's right down in the corners. Oh, it does smell lovely. Okay, then I'm going to get the little bird that I want in the middle. Okay, oh look, that's really got thick now. So what I'm going to do is just add a little bit of this in here. So I've got a chance of getting that in there nicely. Just to loosen that up again. And that often happens with fragrances. They can be quite fluid. And then as soon as you stop stirring them, they can really thicken up quite quickly. But this is ideal now, this consistency, for what I want. Oops, a bit messy. So it won't all fall out of the sides. Now don't mind if the sky colour gets on the outside of it, because this whole thing is going to be covered in sky colour, so that'll be fine. Now I'm going to get my top. Okay, so I think I've got that pretty well pushed on. There's my little bird table done. Now what I'm also going to do, while I've just got a little bit of this left, I'm just going to pop it into this branch here, just so I can get right in to that sort of tight bit. I may not have enough here, I'll just do it with a bit more later on if I don't, but I thought it would be a good way to use that thick bit of soap up. Okay, so I think I've got a good head start on getting that joint filled. Right, let's start getting this birdhouse into the soap. So again, I'm just going to go in stages. Okay, so let's get my mould in, and now I want a layer to support the birdhouse, or the bird table rather. It's not actually a birdhouse. I didn't really measure it, I just sort of did a bit of a guess, because I knew that if I had any extra I could always just dilute it with the other bit of soap I've got over there. Okay, I think that's looking pretty good. I'm going to leave that to just thicken a bit, because we know that thickens quickly. Because obviously this bird table that I've got is going to be fairly heavy. So I just want to make sure. Yeah, actually that may be all right. It might be tricky getting this embedding because it's pretty wide. Okay, cool. Just shimmy it over to where I want it. Okay, there's that in. Right, so now what I want to do is build up the soap around here. So a nice bit more, just pouring in a little bit more fluid. Okay, so I'm just trying to get that in while it's quite fluid, so it makes sure it fills up all those gaps down the side. Okay, so now what I want to do is get my second bird, and I want this one to be sitting on the outside of the birdhouse. So I'll just pop it in there. Gosh, that's looking very close in colour. And just making sure I'm just pushing that so it is actually touching on the side of the birdhouse. Now what I'm going to do here is spread this out, and I need to find the very top of my bird table. Because I've got this little bit that sort of looks like a you know, the chain that would be hanging the bird table on the roof onto the tree. So I'm going to pop that on there now. And then I'm going to use the thickness of this soap to keep it into place. Okay, pretty happy with that. Bit of a messy thing to do. It's always messy when you've got a thicker soap, or if you're not just trying to pour it into the mould. So I'm now going to pinch some of this and fill in my branch again. Okay, and let's get our last little bit done. Okay, so I've got my last little bit of fragrance oil in there. Let's just even out down here. And then I want to start getting some of these leaves in. I'm not too worried if they don't exactly touch the tree. Now I know that looks really messy. I'm going to tidy it up because the idea is that I did want some of this branch to sort of be sticking above the top, but obviously where this is quite thick, it's quite uneven at the moment, so I do need to spend a little bit of time tucking this all in and tidying it all up so it looks respectable on the top. Let's get the rest of this soap in. So there we are with our soap done. I've just got that top all sorted and flattened out. So hopefully that's going to be fine when we'll cut it. Let me just think. I'm actually away for a few days now, so this is probably going to sit in the mould for about 3 or 4 days, but that's absolutely fine, and we'll cut it when I get back. So here we are with our bird table. So it's about 4 or 5 days later, so I've just unmoulded it. Let's have a look at what we've got. Does smell really good. Remember, I put a 2.5% fragrance in there, and that's definitely enough fragrance in there. Right, now I'm expecting possibly a few little holes around the branches, but I can always go in and fill those in. That's why I've kept the ends. I don't normally do big ends like this, but I thought I may need to use some of that soap to go back in, but we'll see how they go. Okay, so let's have a look. Ah, look, they come out really cute. A little bit wonky on the birdhouse, and you can see I've got a couple of little holes where that got quite thick, but that's not a problem. I think they're going to be absolutely fine. There we go. I'm really pleased with those. I think they look really cute, really pretty, nice and sort of summery, springtime summery. I think they've come out. And I quite like the top of the tree. I'm really pleased with how that branch came out, and I quite like the sort of uneven nature of the top there on the soap, rather than it just being a straightforward sort of square top on it. I really like those. They've come out really pretty. And little tiny few bits of holes to fill in, which is always going to be difficult, you know, when you're trying to get a thick soap in between these embeds and that. But overall, not very much at all. So those have come out really cute.
And here's a final photo of the soap. I hope you like this soap and you've enjoyed the video. If you have, it would be great if you gave me a thumbs up. If you'd like to see what I'm making in the future, why not subscribe to my channel? Thanks for watching, everyone. Happy soaping!